Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So Mazda has just unveiled the CX-90, and when I saw it, I thought I was looking at a CX-60. I was really confused. I'm going to compare the two in Photoshop side by side from the exterior and the interior and show you just how similar these two models are. I've talked about having an importance in the new design language to have the graphics be very unique for the brand, and then have the proportions and the surfaces be very simple. But maybe Mazda took that to a new level with this CX-90 because it's so similar to the CX-60. This is the first Mazda with a new longitudinal engine platform. And the big benefit of this setup is that it supports a new range of electrified powertrains, one of them being the most powerful Mazda yet in the turbocharged 3.3 liter inline-six. Sounds like a beast with 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque in combination with a 48 volt hybrid system. This sounds great. This is what I want to see in new cars. They can combine the electric punch with some new internal combustion engines, just like we have here, to increase the power and also increase the efficiency of the engines. And there's also another powerful option in the 2.5 liter inline-four plug-in hybrid. This has 323 horsepower, still a lot, and 369 pound-feet of torque. So the same torque, just a little lower horsepower in this engine. It feels like Mazda is stepping up their game, especially when it comes to their SUVs. Over the past decade, they've kind of tried to break into this luxury segment, and by improving the build quality and more specifically the quality of the interior and the material choices for the interior. And I think they've done a great job with the CX-90 here as well. So let's have a look at the CX-90 and the design and then compare it to the CX-60. So I made this collage here, as you can see. So we're going to go through these side by sides and show you just how similar these are. As I said, I think companies right now, they're treating this area, so the surface of the car, the surfacing of the car is becoming less and less stylized, and there's really nothing here that tells you what type of brand you're looking at. So if we have the surfaces being very simplified with not a lot of lines going on, except for Lexus, I would say they still have a lot going on, but it kind of works for Lexus. But generally, this is the direction that automotive design is going at the moment, to have very simplistic surfacing and then have very strong and clean identities in the front and rear end graphics. And I think Mazda, it looks like a Honda a little bit, but I think the Mazda is doing a great job with that. The only thing I see here that could maybe be improved a little bit is the daytime running lights. So I'm not sure if this is a strong enough identity, because what we have, as I can see, I'm not sure if this is an LED. If it is an LED, it's a little bit better. It's a little bit stronger of a character in the front end. But other than that, there's just this little piece here of LED that seems to be the daytime running lights. And I'm not sure if that's enough to separate this from other brands and to instantly recognize this as a Mazda when it comes to looking at this at night. So if this goes into this LED, then we have another LED here which adds a little bit more to the identity of the car. But maybe that's something they could work on. Now looking at this, compare this to the CX-60. It's almost an exact copy of the same car. The only thing that they told the designers, so they probably said, told the designers to take the CX-90, change a little bit in this intake here. Maybe do have some fun with this. With this area, that's the only part that you can change on the CX-90 from the CX-60. And as you can see, you have a little bit of a different intake here on the CX-60. I think the CX-60 is a beautiful looking SUV. I think the line flow and everything, the proportions and this specific surfacing, typical Mazda surfacing right here in the side, I think that works with the CX-60. And since it's so similar to the CX-90, it works on this new big brother as well. Now going into the side view, and this is what I've talked about before as well, when you have a big brother, what do you do with the C pillar, or the D pillar in this case? So we have the A pillar right here, then we have the B pillar, C pillar, and D pillar right there. So looking at the smaller brother, the CX-60, it has this upswing in the D pillar. So we have more of a sporty design by this going up like this. And this is kind of what we want to have in the mid and small siblings of a lineup. Now looking at the CX-60, what they did here is make it a little bit more elegant and a little bit more stately by switching this angle of the D pillar from going up like we have in the CX-60 to going down, and also make it a little thicker right here. As you can see, see, comparing that to the CX-60, which has almost like a triangular design of the D-pillar, which, as I said, works for a smaller SUV. But when you step up to these bigger sedans and SUVs and what have you in the lineup, you want to have more focus on the rear passengers, and this feels like it's protecting the rear passengers more by having a thicker D-pillar in the rear end than it does in the CX-60. Looking at the rear view, this looks almost exactly the same as well. They do have a lot stronger brand identity in the rear end than they have in the front end with this LED. There's no mistaking this for anything else than a Mazda these days. And I also like the surfacing here. It kind of looks a little bubbly, the CX-90, but it also works because we have very clean surfacing, as I said before, with this side view here. There's nothing going on here. And then super strong character in the rear end with these taillights that at night light up this piece, this LED, and that creates a strong identity for Mazda, which I think they should have in the front end as well. It doesn't feel as strong in the front end, but I still think it's a good looking SUV, both of these, the CX-90 and the CX-60. And you can see that this is obviously the sportier version because we have black trim pieces all around the car and also a black diffuser in the rear. We have, is this quad tailpipes? Not sure if these are actually functional or if they're fake, but it looks good, so that's good for Mazda in the CX-60. And here you can see this surface treatment that is typical Mazda by having this line in the reflections and the body sculpting of the car. It's also very noticeable in the Mazda 3, which I love. I think that's a gorgeous looking hatchback. But they removed that line. It looks like they dialed that line down in the CX-90, which I think, again, suits a larger brother in the lineup. And you can see that we have more chrome details here. There's probably one trim level that comes with this blacked out, like Audi's shadow line, for example. I would go for that. And you also have the exhaust pipes. This, as I said, this is not the sporty SUV. This is the more luxurious SUV, so we might as well hide the exhaust pipes comparing that to the CX-60, supposed to be the sportier version. Looking at it from this view, this is just a view that I threw in because I think it's a good angle of this car to look, compare these two cars. And looking at it from this angle, it looks even more similar because this line is pretty similar to this line that we have in the CX-60. So looking at this and seeing these out on the streets, the only immediate recognizable part that sets these two apart, I would say, is the D-pillar right here. So look at the D-pillar if you want to know if you're looking at a CX-60 or a CX-90. The 90 having the D-pillar going parallel with the angle of the rear end, while the CX-60 has it going in a triangular fashion like this. Now, looking at the interior, this is where I think Mazda has really stepped it up. And I really like their interiors right now because they're doing exactly what I want. And I think you know what that is. That is to have digital gauge cluster in a clear housing. So we still have this housing. Looks like it could be from a 2005 model, which I don't mind at all. I think that looks really good. And then we have a nice high resolution gauge cluster right here, right hidden and deep in the dash with an iPad stuck on the dash right here. This is also very typical for today's cars. But I don't mind it. They can get away with that since they made this gauge cluster so beautiful. And we also have a lot of styling, like clean styling, almost industrialized lines, very sharp lines and horizontal lines going across the entire interior. And I also like this setup right here with this texture looking really nice, and it feels high quality. This is not Mazda 10 years ago. They really stepped it up when it comes to the interior quality of the SUVs and basically their entire lineup. You can see just how similar these two are on the interior as well. So I don't think the designers had a lot of had a lot of fun designing the new CX-90 because they had to take a lot of inspiration from the CX-60. This is almost identical. I can barely see any differences in this. Maybe this is a little wider here than we have in the CX-90, and we still have the screen here, but we still have the housing for the gauge cluster right here. Very clean designs by Mazda, and I think they're stepping it up. I'm looking forward to seeing the new Mazda MX-5 or Miata and see what they do with that, because I'm a fan of the current design. Maybe it looks a little too aggressive in the front end. It's a Miata. It's supposed to be happy and have a smiley face. But I want to know what they're gonna do with the new next generation MX-5. When it comes to the CX-90, I think it's a beautiful looking SUV. It has the clear graphics in the front end and the rear, and also very simple surfacing in clear proportions of the side view, making it look like a pretty stately SUV for what it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.